If you love reading about the lives of literary legends, especially those that have redefined our conception of what the West is, then today's book just might be for you. Today, I will be covering Larry McMurtry, A Life by Tracy Daugherty. Welcome to Spencer Reads Everything. I'm your host, Spencer Duncan, and today we are taking a look at another one of the Pulitzer Prize finalists, this time in the category of biography. Larry McMurtry, A Life. This is, I believe, my last one in the biography section to cover for this year, and I will soon be coming out with a review of a ranking of all of the books and which ones I personally thought should have won the Pulitzer Prizes. Just to give you a little context about this book or why you might even be interested in it, let me give you a brief synopsis of a biography of Larry McMurtry. He himself was a legendary character in one sense, and in the other hand, many people do not know who he is, especially people my generation might not be super familiar with him, although he did have a few hits even in his later life, and that would have overlapped with people of my age, but I think he was a much bigger name in the 60s, 70s, and even into the 80s. But as soon as I mention some of his most successful works, you will probably recognize him. But just to give you a little synopsis of his life, Larry McMurtry is one of the most celebrated authors in American literary history, especially when it comes to the Western genre. He did write about the West, but I will add the caveat that it was a very distinct version of the West. It was a much more nuanced, in many cases a much darker, and a much layered version of the West than what most people might think of when they think of Westerns about cowboys and Indians and whatever other concept you might have about the West. This is a very different perception of the West, and not always in that same sense of some kind of protagonist and antagonist. Sometimes it is very much in regards to a coming of age story, or much more bleakly, a ghost town or a small town feel that is something that is captured in several of his stories, and which many of them have actually been turned into movies. And for that reason, he's considered one of the most important figures in the modern literary canon. I'd say his work does an excellent job at capturing the spirit and challenges and the mythos of that vast region, while also exploring some really important universal human themes. Larry McMurtry was born on June 3rd, 1936 in Archer City, Texas, which comes to be a defining part of not just himself, but of course, everything that he wrote. McMurtry grew up in a family of ranchers, and his early life in this small town profoundly shaped his writing, and it gave him a first-hand understanding of the challenging landscapes and livelihoods of the West. McMurtry published his first novel, which was called Horseman Pass By, in 1961, which was later adapted into the Oscar-winning film HUD, and from there, his career skyrocketed. He went on to write dozens of novels, including The Last Picture Show, an incredibly famous novel that got turned into an even more famous movie, I would say, in 1966. Same with Terms of Endearment, which was turned into an Oscar-winning movie in 1975, and his Pulitzer Prize-winning masterpiece, Lonesome Dove, in 1985, which got turned into a miniseries which redefined miniseries. This was the most successful miniseries up to that point in time, and this is actually the thing that made miniseries a popular approach to adaptations, especially when looking for something between a movie production, which of course only gives you a couple hours, versus some kind of longer TV series. This miniseries, Lonesome Dove, is going to be one of your first real examples of that. And it is what really cemented his reputation as a chronicler of the West. But it also really transformed the cowboy narrative, making it more complex and nuanced and really deeply human in the ways that I've already mentioned. And that's going to be the thing that really characterizes his depiction of the West and his lasting transformation of how we consider the West. In addition to his novels, McMurtry was a prolific essayist and screenwriter and bookseller. He co-wrote the screenplay for Brokeback Mountain, which was of course turned into a well-known Oscar-winning movie in 2005. That is probably going to be the one work of his that is somewhat well known by my generation, and it is probably his last major success. But on top of his writing, he was known for advocating for collecting and selling books. He also operated a massive used bookstore in Archer City, which was referred to as the Last Bookstore. Again, a reference to his famous book, The Last Picture Show. However, despite his literary success, McMurtry was known for his modesty and for just being a somewhat quiet and someone with a really wry wit and qualities that endeared him to readers and fellow writers alike. Despite being someone that redefined the genre of the Western and someone that was really popular in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. He actually only just passed away a couple years ago in 2021, which I think is one of the reasons why this book is just now coming out. But clearly, this book was started well before he passed away. The research in it is incredible. I think it is very detailed, and it is obvious that the author spent a lot of time with this individual. Certainly, through research, got to know him very well, and that shows through in this biography. That is, of course, a quick biography of Larry McMurtry himself, which is obviously the purpose of writing a book like this. But I must say that the author, Tracy Daugherty, who he himself is a well-known biographer, really does an excellent job at researching. And I would say in this book, Larry McMurtry, A Life, it is deeply researched, and it is a compelling biography that captures the essence of this iconic writer. I would specifically say that Daugherty is a meticulous chronicler of McMurtry's life, from his humble beginnings in Archer City to his rise as a literary giant, and of course how he dealt with it. And the book really delves into McMurtry's personal relationships, his struggles with depression and heart disease, something that really prevented him from being very active on the literary scene near the end of his life, and his relentless pursuit of storytelling. And I'd say what makes this biography particularly engaging is the author's ability to contextualize McMurtry's work within the broader landscape of American literature and culture. I mean, he really examines how McMurtry's writing both embraced and subverted the traditional Western genre, making it more accessible and relatable to modern audiences, and showing how there's so much more to it than just this broad concept of the spaghetti Western. And again, he really just shows how there's so much more detail, and in many cases, much more darkness, and more importantly, many more feelings that should be associated with the West, and not just this massive landscape, but the ideas of loneliness and the ideas of becoming a developed and mature human being. All of that is so much more pronounced in his perception of what a Western could and should be, versus obviously this caricatured version of Westerns that I think are far more popular, or were far more popular in his day. I'd say all of this, of course, really provides fascinating insights into McMurtry's screenwriting career and his lifelong love with books and bookstores. I'd say that's an important part that plays an outsized role in this book. I'd also say that one of the strengths of this biography is its exploration of McMurtry's complexity. I mean, he was a man of great literary ambition, but he was also deeply private, and he was often conflicted about his place in the literary world. The author of this biography doesn't really shy away from these contradictions either. He presents a nuanced portrait of a man who was just as enigmatic as he was talented. And so it's no surprise that it was, of course, nominated for a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize in Biography. It shouldn't be a surprise, because big awards like this very frequently love to write about themselves in a way. Larry McMurtry himself was a Pulitzer Prize winner, and so you can see how this would be appealing to have a biography on a Pulitzer Prize winner to win another Pulitzer Prize. But that's just my perception of big awards like this. It's no secret that Hollywood has the same issue when it comes to the Oscars. They have a tendency to really like movies that talk about Hollywood. So who is this book for? Well, if you've ever been captivated by any of his works, like Lonesome Dove or The Last Picture Show or Terms of Endearment, or of course Brokeback Mountain, and you just want to get some behind the scenes at what exactly this individual was like, and what his writing was like, and just his experiences in life that really shaped why he wrote about the things that he did, and why he wrote about them the way that he did, I would say that this would be a great read for anyone that is interested in any of that. Or if you just want to get into the mind of a well-known, incredibly influential thinker and author, any of those would be great reasons to pick up this book. And I think it's an incredibly researched book and an easy to read book. I was not personally super familiar with Larry McMurtry, but it did not take me long to get an idea of why he was an important individual and why I wanted to personally know more about him. And I certainly enjoyed it. That being said, who is this book not for? Well, it is long. It is very long, and so if you've never heard of him, and none of the things that I said about the topics he wrote about, or any of the things that he was famous for writing, don't appeal to you, then this book probably will not appeal to you, because it is so long. I think you just might have a hard time really caring if you can't contextualize any of that, and if none of these really well-known movies have any draw to you, then you're probably not going to want to pick it up. But I would recommend it to almost anyone that thinks that they might have an interest in Larry McMurtry, or again, in just trying to get to know about a very influential author that reshaped a whole genre. Any of those reasons would be a great reason to pick this up. Of course, I would love to know what you guys think about this book, and again, what you think about any of the other Pulitzer Prize finalists and winners. Please let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on those notifications, and until next time, keep those pages turning.